Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Petty Officer Kurt Morris. We warmly welcome the family of Flying Officer Philip Gardner Brooks, who are joining us this evening, including Mr. Simon Lewis, Secretary for the Department of Veterans Affairs. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors. First, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through till the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that would help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed to the entries to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read a story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Flying Officer Philip Brooks. Philip Gardner Brooks was born in 1917, one of 6 children of Albert and Marjorie Banks of Adelaide, South Australia. A bank clerk before the war, Brooks was an active member of the Adelaide Rowing Club, paraded part-time with the 10th Battalion, known as the Adelaide Rifles. He married Marjorie Lewis in 1940, and the couple had two children, Anthony and Julie. Brooks enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force in Adelaide in August 1940 and trained as an airman in accordance with the Empire Australia Training Scheme. After initial training at Summers in Victoria, he carried out elementary flying training at Parafield in South Australia and service training at Point Cook, where he qualified as a pilot in February 1941. He was subsequently commissioned as a pilot officer. Having learned to fly in Tiger Moths and the Avro Anson, Brooks completed Air Observer School at Cootamundra in New South Wales and the General Reconnaissance School at Point Cook. He then spent time at an operational training unit at Nehill, Victoria, where he trained and qualified to fly the Lockheed Hudson light bomber and reconnaissance aircraft. A skilled pilot, Brooks was posted to No. 7 Squadron at Laverton in Victoria, where he spent a month flying coastal patrols, seaward searches, and anti-submarine patrols after the outbreak of the Pacific War. He was transferred to No. 6 Squadron, also at Laverton, in March 1942, before posting with No. 13 Squadron at Hughes Airfield at Darwin, in the wake of the Japanese bombings. Having suffered heavy losses against the Japanese in the previous weeks, No. 13 Squadron carried out an operational attack and reconnaissance sorties throughout the Timor and Eastern Islands of the Netherlands East Indies, as the island of Ambon faced invasion and ultimately fell to the Japanese. On the 22nd of May, 1942, Brooks Hudson A-16-174 was one of 2 Australian aircraft that failed to return from a strike against the Japanese shipping in Ambon Bay. After the war, Australians imprisoned on Ambon later described the raid. The 2 Hudson bombers had carried out their run at an exceptionally low level, dropping their bombs directly on the enemy ships before 2 Japanese Zero fighters took off from a nearby airfield. One of the Japanese aircraft was shot down before the remaining Zero engaged and shot down Brooks's aircraft. The prisoners who witnessed the incident said that for sheer courage and bravery that they have never seen the likes before or after. Brooks and his crew did a magnificent job in a magnificent manner. Philip Brooks was 24 years old. He was buried at Peso Village, but today he rests in Ambon War Cemetery in Indonesia. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left. Some 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. This is but one of the stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flying Officer Philip Brooks, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We'll leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.